This was like, this week there have been, 4 cases kind of thing. I was mostly like, I don't want pop-up podcasting to end up in the news as the epicenter of like a horrible outbreak.
Hi, you're listening to Pop-Up Podcasting. We make podcasting easy, so stick around for tips, tricks, and a behind-the-scenes look at the podcast industry. So JP, early on in COVID, like very, very early on, the studio was affected by COVID, for lack of a better word. Did you want to kind of get into sharing that story?
Sure. I'll do my best. I'll say for one thing, maybe early March, something like that. So in Ontario, where we are, the province really locked down, I think like March 13th or something like that. So mid-March. And in early March or maybe late February, I remember working in the studio with Lisa, and clients were leaving, and we often sort of shake hands or, have some pleasantries. And Lisa was like, I don't know, there's this thing in China. It's, maybe we shouldn't be shaking hands. And I kind of privately was like, in my head, I was like, I don't know, that's silly. I'm going to shake people's hands. I'm not going to change my behavior for it. And a year and a bit later, it's we've changed our behavior quite a bit.
Made a fool out of all of us.
I just want to publicly say, Lisa, I was wrong and you were right to stop shaking people's hands. In any case, so a little bit after Lisa stopped shaking people's hands, COVID, I think we were starting to hear about cases in Toronto getting a bit closer to us. And we had this one client come in, and she, after I'm trying to remember exactly how it went down, but anyway, she came in the past. She had been like, I'm a hugger, come here, like forget shaking hands, we're hugging. And this time she was like, oh, I'm feeling a little under the weather. I don't think I'm going to hug you this time. I was like, okay, cool. That COVID thing, it's getting closer. We'll be careful. So she came in, she recorded, she left. And then it...
Was it like a week later when we were together in the studio and you were like, hey, remember that session last week? Was that kind of how it went?
Yeah, well, it was less than a week later. So this was somebody, a notable person. And I think 2 days later, it was in the news that they had COVID. And then we were called by public health and said, you were in contact with this person.
We might have been the first few companies in the city of Ottawa contacted by public health.
Yeah. It was like we weren't in daily case counts at that point. This was like, this week there have been, 4 cases. kind of thing.
I mean, I have to know on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad was the freak out?
Good question. I don't think it, I mean, it felt serious. And I was
but
like,
it was confusing. Yeah.
Yeah. And you don't know how quite like, what are because we knew so little about COVID back then. Is it transmitted by touching a surface that somebody else touched? Like I was mostly like, I don't want pop-up podcasting to end up in the news as like the epicenter of like a horrible outbreak. But I contacted clients that had been in the studio up to like, I guess in the 2 days between this person being in the studio and us finding out, there had been some other clients in the studio and we didn't know how long it lingered and all that. So I contacted some people and was like, I'm sorry to tell you this, but like you might have been exposed because you were in the studio like the day after or the hour after. And then the worst part of it, I think, was that testing wasn't online yet. So, or testing existed, but it was only for only for symptomatic people. Like you had to have been exposed and be symptomatic to qualify for a test. And so Lisa and I got these calls from public health and I was like, okay, I got to get tested. And they're like, we're not going to test, just stay home and keep an eye on it.
Yeah, they were basically case tracking us.
Yeah.
But we were kind of freaked out reasonably because we were getting called by Ottawa Public Health and then just being told like, but you can't have a test. And that was unfortunate. That felt frustrating and a little scary at the time, I remember.
Yeah. Yeah. It was tough. I mean, that was just before everything closed down. You know, this was like March 12th or something. And then the next day, like, I don't know why this sticks out in my mind, but like the NBA canceled its season. I'm not
that sticks out for me. Like that's the main thing.
But it's like, that's a big deal. Like,
yeah, that stuck out for me. As soon as like the sports league started to cancel, I was like, oh, this is a big deal because they're not going to miss out on money. They're just not going to do it. So for them to cancel, I was like, oh, this is big.
Yeah. Anyway, it was a weird experience. And, Will was kind of our unaffected hero because he hadn't been there that day. So he went to the studio and like unplugged computers and brought them to our houses so that we could use them to work from home.
And Will, you weren't driving, right? So how did you even I don't even remember how you got my equipment to me.
He walked it.
Did he?
Yeah. I walked it over.
Because it was like this, it was the monitor, like the tower. It was the whole thing.
Yeah, it was a bit fraught, but I made it.
Did you wear a hazmat suit going in there?
I did not know. Like you didn't really have a ton of awareness on what it all meant, right? So I was kind of just like, well, it seems like you're also like in the internship, right? You kind of got to do whatever. JP could have asked me to dive off of the falls at Hogsback at that point. I would have been like, it seems like the boss is saying to do it. But so, yeah, I don't know.
I love that.
Well, it turns out your non-COVID blood is the cure. Give me all your blood. I'm a terrible.
Yeah, no, it was definitely freaky. It was very freaky. Like I remember seeing the news report. I think the next night before I was scheduled to go in. I think on the Friday, and so Thursday night. The report on whoever. I had I don't think I've ever had. Well, I've had I think two kind of things where I could tell that I was panicking or something. And that was one of them where I was like, oh my God, like, what does that mean? Because, you just didn't know, right? Like it was some unknown, scary thing. So, that was definitely one of them. My other one also happened at Pop-Up Podcasting.
Come on, man.
We don't have to get into that, yeah.
Oh, let's get into that.
Come on, man.
Please tell.
Yeah, you can't tease something like that.
Well, again, neither of them were. I just remember when I saw that news report on CBC, I was like, I had some sort of like pit of the stomach type feeling when I don't get that stuff too often. And then just the other one was, I think, just for like some like live show or something like that. Like when I was like things were going sideways and I don't even know what happened, but my arms randomly got like kind of pins and needles, like numb sort of feeling as I was doing the live show. And I was like, I don't even know if I'm having like a medical event right now. I was just kind of like had to do it. And, I'm trying to like work the stream deck with like numb fingers and stuff. But it was, I don't know, it just went away and was totally fine and whatever. But I don't know if I was just like stressed or anxious or something like that. I think I called my girlfriend afterwards and she just laughed at me about it. But
I think I might be having a heart attack.
What a team player you are, Will. What a team player.
About like a month into like full blown like lockdown and everything, like the first few weeks, I was on Rogers cable just looking at something to watch, and then one of the top films that was being replayed was Contagion.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
so
classic.
I was like, all right, sure, why not? And then I threw that on, and it was so similar to what we were currently experiencing, like the groceries and the toilet paper and all that stuff. Like it was happening in the movie, and like everything was like point for point happening. And then when the movie ended, I was like, well, I probably shouldn't have watched that.
Yeah. That'll increase the old panic.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I hope we can avoid further panic-inducing events. Live is stressful. Live is stressful.
Yeah. And I think something went sideways, like with the client or guest. There was some other sort of extenuating, like or maybe some sort of multiplier in terms of stress from the normal just live show stuff. So it was. was one of those things in the moment. I was just like, oh, is this like a thing? And then afterwards it was just hilarious because like, yeah, like halfway through the show, like it was fine and everything. But yeah, it was definitely in the moment. I was like, uh-oh.
I think I feel that way anytime I have to do something I don't feel prepared for. Like if I have a consultation or something where they're asking me questions I don't know, part of me is like, I'm gonna friggin' lose my mind. I'm just gonna like
right. That's why I'm trying to kind of minimize mine, because I'm like, I know people who this happens to them like all the time. So it just doesn't happen to me a lot. So those two stand out. So I'm like, it wasn't necessarily like a big thing in any way, but yeah.
We should put a little pin in this story by saying neither Lisa nor I developed symptoms. So that was great.
Yeah.
Nor did our families.
Right.
And Lisa, what was the fallout at your house after getting that call from public health?
Yeah, so my kids weren't with me when I found out. So basically I just called their dad and said, like, I've been advised to not be around anyone for the next 2 weeks. So
wow.
Yeah, I was mostly alone by myself for a couple weeks. And I don't even remember if I went outside and like went for walks and stuff. Like it was that kind of situation where I was like, I don't know what this is. But luckily I did have some help, like, you know, someone dropping off groceries and stuff for me and helping
computers.
With that. So yeah. What about like, Will? Oh my goodness.
Dropping off computers.
I only did that
yeah,
once
like,
with one computer. To be
I know
clear.
I mentioned it already, so I didn't think to say it again. But like, yeah, Will, that was impressive. Like opening the door and seeing that equipment and that big computer tower, and I was like, how did he do it? How did he make this happen?
I'm just picturing like you opening the door and Will all disheveled and like he just walked through Desert Storm.
No, I didn't see Will.
Here it is.
He dropped
that's the thing.
it
There
and
was,
ran.
yeah, we had to do no contact, right? So I
Yeah.
I think messaged Lisa or whatever, being like, all right, it's like outside your place now. But there was no one on the street either was the other thing, right? It was like normally it'd be, you know, a fairly busy walk and there was, like nobody. I don't remember seeing anyone, right? So I was free to bumble along with all my hardware and no one got in my way.
No, I'm still like, I don't know if bitter is the right word, but like the self-isolate for 2 weeks, you can't have a test, so you'll never really know.
What a rip-off.
Was really, it was a hard time. Like I was like sleeping in the other room and I stopped, like, I was like, okay, I better not touch my wife or the baby for the next 2 weeks. We had like an 8-month-old baby at the time. And it sucked. I think I only made it like to day 11 of the 14 days. And I was like, you know what? Screw this.
Yeah, you're like, at this point, you're not sick.
And like, we're in the same house. Like we had one bathroom in the house. Like, how do you, like, if I had it, I'm sure the rest of the family would have gotten it. But anyway.
Thanks for checking out Pop-Up Podcasting, podcasting made easy. If you're interested in learning more about podcasting or starting your own podcast, you can find us at popuppodcasting.ca, where you can download our free guide, Podcasting at Work.